Hello, friends, and welcome to the PrepWell podcast. I'm your host, Phil Black. And if you have an 8th, 9th, or 10th grader with big aspirations, like the Ivy League, or military service academies like West Point, ROTC, or athletic scholarships, boom, you've come to the right place. My specialty, my superpower, if you will, is preparing families for these competitive programs. I'll teach you what your child should do, when they should do it, and how you can help. So stick around and prepare to out-prepare. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the PrepWell podcast. In today's podcast, I'm going to get very tactical. What we're discussing today is specifically geared toward those students preparing for the SAT or ACT in the coming months, which should be every rising junior out there, but its message will also help students across all age groups. So if you're a rising junior, this is a must listen. If you're a student of any other age, this is a should listen. Now, just last week, in working with my own son on his SAT prep, he's a rising junior, I came across what I consider a major missed opportunity in how he was preparing for his upcoming test. And once I discovered this happening, or not happening as it were, I did a quick poll, and it turns out that my son wasn't the only one missing out on this critical study strategy, including many of my other private PrepWellers. The strategy has to do with creating an SAT or ACT cheat sheet that you can refer to right before taking the exam. I hope some of you out there are already doing this, but if you are not, I strongly suggest that you give it a try. And here's what I mean. If you are right now studying for the SAT or the ACT, as I hope you are, I highly recommend that you begin to build a cheat sheet listing the concepts that you've been struggling with or that you continue to forget test after practice test. And you should do it section by section, as I'll explain here in a minute. Because if you are not, and you're simply taking tests and grading yourself to see if you're improving and then moving on, but you're not keeping track of what you're doing wrong and why, or what you're struggling with and why, you're missing a huge opportunity. Just because you're taking practice tests, either as full tests or in sections, doesn't mean that you're really learning. Learning takes another layer of effort. It takes analysis and digestion and recording. Even if you're doing a systematic error analysis, this is where you go back over questions that you got wrong to figure out what you did wrong, which is great and which is what you should be doing. Don't stop there. Keep a running tally of what you're doing wrong, especially if you keep repeating certain mistakes. Then the night before you take the real thing, you can review that consolidated cheat sheet that lists all of the things that you should remember. This allows you to prime your brain right before sitting down for the test. If you don't have a cheat sheet, you're just flying blind. Yes, you may remember a few of the things that you did wrong on past tests over the last few months, but there's no system to it. You're just hoping for the best. And I'm suggesting that that's not good enough. You don't want to leave this test up to chance and assume that you'll happen to remember what you did wrong 3 or 4 practice tests ago. Keep a log. For example, here are some items that you might put on a cheat sheet for the math section of the SAT. Number 1, remember special right triangle formulas and trig formulas. Number 2, don't forget the equation of a line, y equals mx plus b. Number 3, recognize the use of quadratic formulas. Number 4, if you're stuck on a question, plug in a number as one of the variables. Number 5, always look for perfect squares. Number 6, recognize when to factor. Number 7, remember the PEMDAS rules. Number 8, make sure you get through those first 10 questions pretty quickly. Now, these are all mental cues that you are reminding yourself of right before the test, which should also give you a lot of confidence. How about the grammar section of the SAT? You might put things down like number 1, make sure you don't ignore the answer E choice, which is the no change answer. A lot of people ignore that. Sometimes that's the right answer. Don't forget that. Number 2, be careful about answers ending in ing. Usually those answer choices are incorrect. Number 3, look for similar sentence structures. Number 4, use context clues. Number 5, remember that hyphens come in pairs. Or how about the reading section? Number 1, make sure that you're annotating and circling and bulletizing as you're reading. Number 2, be careful of extreme words in the answer choices. They're often not correct. Now, obviously, everyone's going to have a different cheat sheet because every student will struggle with their own unique types of questions. But by building your cheat sheet ahead of time, you will be imprinting these golden rules in your head. So when you sit down for the real thing and you come across a stumbling block or a tough question, just pull up that cheat sheet in your head and go down the list. And hopefully that will unlock something. And by the way, this study tactic of creating a running cheat sheet of all the important things that you need to remember is not limited to the SAT or the ACT. This study method will work in all of your classes, including your AP exams. Instead of trusting your memory to access everything all jumbled together in your head, chunk these things down to make them easier to remember and access and follow. This will be a winning tactic in high school, in college, in grad school, and for the rest of your life. So start building that cheat sheet. That's all I've got for you today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the continued support. If you know a parent with an 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader, particularly a rising 11th grader in high school that might find this helpful, please share this episode with them. You can do that by finding that small box with the tiny arrow pointing up. That's the share button. Click that button. Text your friends a link to this episode. Put a little personal note in there asking them to give it a listen. Of course, if you have questions, comments, or an idea for an upcoming episode, please reach out to me by email. You can DM me on Instagram. Check out our blog, Facebook page. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. Until next week, goodbye, good luck, and never stop preparing. This podcast is brought to you by PrepWell Academy. PrepWell Academy is my one-of-a-kind online mentoring program that delivers to your 9th or 10th grader a short, highly relevant video from me every week, every Sunday, in fact, where I give them a heads up about what they should be thinking about to stay ahead of the game. To get these valuable lessons into your child's hands, please head over to PrepWellAcademy.com and enroll your child today.